So what we're going to do now is we are going to move into some breakout rooms in Zoom. And these are going to be supported by the mural board, the digital whiteboard that we showed very briefly earlier. I am just dropping the link again for that mural whiteboard into the chat. It will take you a couple of minutes just to register, and that just gives you access to the board. But your facilitators will also support you in each of the groups. So we have 5 breakout groups, each supported by a fantastic group facilitator who's going to help you through the discussion. The discussion, as you can see, is based around 3 questions, and you're going to have about 20 to 30 minutes. And the 3 questions are, and they're also on the mural board, which you'll be able to see as well, is how do you think climate services, such as these developed by SECLI-FIRM, can benefit your industry? What additional information would you need to make climate services useful for your business? And then what is stopping you from using a seasonal forecast climate service right now? Okay, and the questions are also on the digital whiteboard. The facilitators will lead you through the discussion. And then when we come back, we will have a quick report out. So it might be worth one person from each of the groups just self-nominating to share some of the highlights. Not everything, but we'll talk a bit more about that as we come to the report out session after you've been in the breakout. So each the facilitators know which group they're with. When I start and open the rooms, you will be sent automatically to a breakout room, and then we will give you some time signals at 10 minutes to go, 5 minutes to go, 2 minutes to go. So enjoy your discussions, have a good think about the questions, and we'll see you in about 20-25 minutes. And I'm going to open the rooms now, and you will be automatically sent to your breakout room. Great. Welcome back, everyone. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a very quick report out because we're a little behind time. So I'm going to go to each group in turn, so group 1 through to 5, and just ask somebody from group 1 if they could just share with us kind of where was the main bit of your conversation. So what was the thing that it might be some additional information you need, it might be how you could see it could benefit, or it could be a barrier, you know, what's stopping you from using it. So we're going to go, somebody is typing, so if you're not on mute, could you mute for us because we can hear the keyboard. Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go to group 1, which I know was Joe Osborne's group, and with John and a few of the others in there. So where did you spend some of your time? Just one highlight from the conversation or low light from the conversation. Joe? And you're on mute. Great, thanks, Joe. Just one thing from the group, please.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, we talked quite a bit about sort of, well, some of the kind of sort of obstacles at the moment, particularly one of them being, so Jana from Tenet talked quite extensively about how they had sort of barriers at the moment to how they actually use the forecast informations that were streaming down from the sort of the regulators in the Netherlands there, which was inhibiting them somewhat in like how they actually use the information. So it was interesting to hear that the barriers aren't necessarily always due to the organization and the way that that works, but often external barriers as to how they use that information, because this is a new space and we don't always know kind of exactly kind of how to use it and present the kind of decisions that we're making, and kind of why those decisions are being made on the basis of the kind of new kind of forecast information. So there's some of the, yeah, it's just interesting thinking that those barriers are sometimes a bit beyond kind of the actual forecast, the services that you're delivering, and kind of, yeah, they can go beyond that as well.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, thank you, Joe and group 1. Let's go to group 2, and that was Lesley. Lesley,
yeah, I mean, we had some really interesting discussions, but a lot of it hinged around confidence and trust, and how the industry needs that confidence and trust, and that's being developed sort of hand in hand with industry and SECLI-FIRM projects. So it's kind of a joint process. But, you know, once you have that and once you use it, that can have not only the impact on operational things, but things like communications as well, because just having an extra 2 weeks could really help your comms if you've got a peaks in demand.
Great. Thank you, Lesley, and thank you to group 2. So well, let's go to group 3, and that was Marcelo.
Yes, thank you. So I have some problem in writing on the mural. I don't know that probably it's a problem, but I have my paper notes. So the first things is that we try to understand that probably we have to find specific variable when you want to deliver something. That could be, in some cases we did it, the wave height, the river flow, and not only the temperature and the precipitation as usually we are going to study in our part. And then we understood that doing a climate services, it's also need the inclusion of other actors. For example, people that are expert in providing software, so ICT expert, but also creating a basic knowledge inside our end users, because not all the people are expert in climate. And so you need to provide also this kind of information. And finally, you have to customize your solution for the specific stakeholder. So, for example, TL could be a very good example of climate services, but needs to other aspects in order to create really something that could be practically used. And finally, one important part is that clear and strong data set missing for improving the decision making for the final users. And this is very, very important. We discussed it a lot inside SECLI-FIRM, but it's something that we have to tailor for the single users.
Great. Thank you, Marcelo, and thank you to group 3. So let's go to group 4, and that was Antonio.
Yes, thank you. We had a very interesting discussion, and our main point is the consistency between the different seasonal forecasts in terms of data models and institutes, and of course the availability to have more months of prediction in advance, because we talking about that each company has have a different exposure to different variables, and in some cases small improvement can produce a nice added value in an economic assessment. In other cases, no. And in addition, we're talking about the access to the forecast, that in some cases is not easy. But in general, our discussion is the main point is this.
Okay, great. Thank you, Antonio, and thank you, group 4. So, and finally, let's go to Christian and group 5.
Yeah, I think we can echo already some of the things that has been said, but both about the potential is definitely there, and one of the main blocking things is of course skill and accessibility and so on, the right personnel needed to interpret it. But also I think one of the important things that we also discussed was when we have these forecasts being delivered, it's quite important that they are delivered in the right way. So we discussed things as they need to be put in a bigger context, they need to have some text, some words explaining the weather situation or climate situation that's affecting into giving the conditions that are being predicted, and also a general understanding by the end use of the skill is extremely important. I think is one of the things we've discussed.
Great, thank you, Christian. Okay, so we've done that really quickly. So what I think I'd like to do is, because we've got a little bit more time, is just to again throw it open to the group and to ask if you have any questions or anything additional you would like to add. And again, if you have something, either use the raise hand button in the reactions or drop it in the chat for us and we will pick it up from there. Anybody else? Any further thinking? Any of the report outs trigger any other thoughts for you, or anything else you'd like to share from your breakout discussions? Or are we all good?
Can I ask a question?
Of course you.
It's Melody Trollier, Melody Trollier, AXA Climate. Thank you.
Yeah, go for it.
Thanks. We are working right now with a partner for seasonal forecasting, and it offers to you to use seasonal forecasting, but also to look at the analog periods in the past in order to know, for example, if we have this or this teleconnection in the past months, what was the climate in the further months, and to compare what has been seen in the past thanks to analog techniques and what the seasonal forecasting say us for the future, in order to see if there are a consistency. And we were thinking that perhaps it could be a way to have, yes, better consistency, or to have more information on the future, but I'm not so sure if it's a good approach. If anyone have a feedback on the fact to look to the analogs and to the seasonal forecasting together, if it's a good idea or not.
Okay, great. Anybody want to respond to Melody? Thank you, Melody, for the question. Anybody have any thoughts on what Melody said? Okay, Melody, I'm going to ask you to summarize it in the chat for us, so as we don't lose it. We have it on the recording, but so as we don't lose it, if you could summarize your comment in the chat for us, and then we can pick it up from there as well.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you, Melody.
We use,
John.
We do use analogs, both for looking at what might be coming, but generally in the sort of trading arm of the business, not in operational. So although I mentioned teleconnections, I suppose it feeds into that.
Okay.
In terms of wider understanding of what you're looking at as a forecast product.
Great, thank you, John. Any other thoughts, comments, or questions from anybody else before we move to a break? Okay, Marcelo, I thought I saw your hand up briefly. Was there something you wanted to add?
Yes, because in our group, most of the people were from the energy sector, and I was very interested to understand what happened with people that working in other sector like water, and especially on question 2 and 3, if there is anyone from the other groups that could comment on that. So what are the needs and why people block users for not using seasonal forecast in other sector than energy, so agriculture or water.
Okay, great. Anybody from any of the other groups talk about those things from a different, not outside of the energy sector? Ian, I can see that you've got Thames Water against your name, so I'm going to see if there's anything you can add for us.
Yeah, of course. Obviously, anything new is viewed with some skepticism. People need to get confidence in the climate service. There's some very big financial decisions to be made based on the forecast. The more we learn, the longer we take the service, then people will gain confidence. That's all I can say, really.
No, I appreciate the comment. Thank you, Ian. I'm going to maybe ask Antonio, who I can see joined us, who obviously may have a comment from an agricultural perspective. Antonio, is there anything you'd be happy to share for us?
Well, there's a number of points I will be focusing on my presentation later on, but I do believe that there is a barrier, a border of trust that needs to be acquired in order to have adoption and to have users actually incorporating the information coming from a climate service onto their decision making. In agriculture, this is something which is a little bit more difficult than in other sectors, because people are not really used to think probabilistically. Probabilities, for as paradoxically as it may seem, is not something that is in the mind of the farmer and in the mind of people working in agri-food. So I think that ways of communicating probabilistic reasoning should be developed in order to have these people come on board.
Okay, great. Thank you, Antonio. And we look forward to your presentation later. Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm going to suggest we move into our second break. So we've got a slightly longer second break. We're going to go for 15 minutes. So that means you've got a good chunk of time to step away, refill your glasses, use the facilities, take a breath of fresh air, but we will rejoin. So my clock says 12 minutes past 11 UK time. So that means we will reconvene at 11:27 UK time, okay? 11:27. So we'll see you in 15 minutes. So stay logged in, just switch off your cameras and stay muted, and we'll see you in 15 minutes. Thank you, everybody.